drinking, and I nearly died. And
Mm.
I fractured my skull in multiple places. I fractured my jaw in 16 places. I fractured my cheek. I lost kind of half my teeth. My teeth were coming through here. My jawbone was coming through here. And I recall waking up very groggy after a 6 or 7 hour operation, which, some of that was to restructure and some of it was to save my life. Evaluate your life now and reflect and say, imagine myself at 60 or 65 or 70, looking back, if nothing much changes, how will I feel about myself and my life? Will I be okay with, when I took the easier road, or I missed that opportunity? Or will I feel deep regret? Because if that's what I'm going to feel, then you got to change it now. The greatest, sense of accomplishment and value and happiness you get out of something is when you've had to sacrifice, struggle, and put an enormous amount into something. It's this sense of, it's not ego, it's not better than anyone else.
And it's just, you may be just one step away from it.
Absolutely. Who knows when it is? You may be 100.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today we have an epic episode for you on how you can build an unlimited mindset. From couch dweller to ultra endurance champion, Jason Dunn's story of transforming his life with an unlimited mindset is proof that extraordinary change begins with one tough choice. An unlimited mindset, transforming life through purpose, resilience, and action. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening or watching this podcast episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow or subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. As I mentioned, today we have a champion on the Champion Mindset Collective. We are thrilled to welcome Jason Dunn, a remarkable unlimited mindset coach, elite ultra endurance athlete, corporate executive, and author. Jason's journey from being a smoker at 34 to competing in grueling Ironman races and running 100K ultra marathons is nothing short of inspiring. He is here to share his daily practices, mindset shift, and lessons from failure to empowered him to achieve the impossible and show how we can do the same. Let's dive in and uncover the art of being limitless. Welcome, Jason, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Anthony, hi everyone. Great to be here. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be on your wonderful Champion Mindset podcast.
Thank you. It's great to have you here. And what an inspiration. I mean, I've done some running, nowhere near as much as what you've done. But would love for you to share your story leading up to what you're doing today and doing these ultra marathons and the coaching, the unlimited coaching mindset as well. What was your journey in life like from childhood to now?
Okay, well, as you might be aware, there's 60 years worth, nearly 61 years worth. So, and I do have a tendency to be able to talk a bit. So I'm going to try and make this as succinct as possible. Hey, look, I grew up in the UK, pretty normal, pretty nice upbringing. And the one thing that I loved was to play soccer, football, and I lived and breathed soccer and football, and I would play lots of times a week. I played at representative level, and like pretty much every other boy in the UK, or these days, male and female youngsters, is to be a professional, football player, because that is, that's the panacea, that's the ultimate. So that's how I lived, and played pretty hard. I was a pretty good player. And so that was my dream. At the age of 15, I was presented with an opportunity to become an apprentice at a English first division football club. So back in those days, that was the second tier above the equivalent to the Premier League. It's pretty daunting. Because they take on 40 apprentices and typically 2 might make it, and you do crap jobs like cleaning it, muddy football boots and things like that. But it was probably more the fact that, I was studying, and I also, I would have had to have traveled 2.5 hours in a train after school, 2 nights a week, and then again the weekend. It was just almost logistically impossible. I'd be getting back after midnight as a 15-year-old, which was sort of dangerous as well. Catching trains, so I followed my head and not my heart, despite that being my dream. And I decided not to take that opportunity, and I poured myself into my study. And then I moved to Australia. I moved to Australia at 17. That was a decision that it took me 4 seconds to make, and I'll talk more about the 4 second rule and how you can banish procrastination by making decisions in 4 seconds. And then essentially sort of life took over, and probably wasn't very long till my regret began to build, and it built and it built and it snowballed to the point that I had great regret. Um, I would tell people, I would often say, especially over a few beers, which I drank probably a little bit too much, because at the age of 15, I started drinking, found girls, smoked, all the bad things. Oh, well, not all the bad things, but not particularly good for a young person. And so that's kind of how life went. And I was a bit lost. I had a pretty decent job. I worked hard. Had family, but I still, within me, I felt lost. I had this growing regret that I could have, and I would tell people I could have, and I began to dislike myself for saying that.
And
So
what was that realization point for you that that things weren't going the way you know
I
that you wanted to?
many, many, many years. It was at least a
Mm,
decade, and
mm,
you can either control your destiny, or you let your legacy, or you can let your legacy control you. And my legacy was controlling
mm,
me, and so I had to. I knew I really needed it. I needed a purpose. I needed, something that, other than obviously my family, I needed something that, got me up in the morning full of energy and full of positivity,
mm,
something to really aspire to.
mm,
And I
mm.
found it. So that,
Yeah, yeah. And that's a transformative journey for you, defining moment to decide to take that tough road and change your life.
um, so a friend of mine, essentially, and again, this is, I'd share all of this in quite detail and all the practices in my book. The friend of mine actually dared me at around, it was when I was 34, well, said, hey, we're going to do a small corporate triathlon. They were very popular in those days. You'd get thousands of people there. He said, hey, Jace, come on, let's do this. It's only really short. And I went, yeah, you know what? I can do that. Even though I'm sort of not really running very much, I can do that. Thinking that I was going to do the 3 kilometer run leg,
Mm,
until a few weeks later, which was probably about 11 or 12 weeks out. And we met, and you said, how's the training going? I said, the running's going pretty good. And you said, well, what about the swimming and the biking? And the color just completely drained from my face. And I was speechless. And he looked at me and said, what's the matter, mate? What's wrong? And I said, well, I have a really deep fear of drowning. I can't swim. I can't, I have trouble just, immersing my head, like putting my face underwater.
mm,
And he went, I said, come on, you can do this. And it was one of those moments where I just knew it was a defining moment in my life, because I'd often taken the easier road, which, is that kind of just choice around, do I discretionary effort, yes or no? And so I knew it was, really, really important. And I went, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. So next day I bought myself a, pair of swimming trunks and some goggles, and the day after that, I rocked up at the pool, and I would sit there for 20 minutes holding onto the steering wheel of my car. 20 minutes it took me. Everything, every muscle fiber thought was, flight and
mm,
fear, and just, let's just go. This is crazy. But I knew that I just knew how important this was, to face what was actually essentially my greatest fear. And so I'd sit there for 20 minutes, and I eventually psyched myself up, and I'd go in, and I tried to swim a 25-meter lap and then another 25-meter lap. that was all I did the first time. And I went back a couple of days later, and this time I sat there holding the steering wheel for 15 minutes. And this just continued until the point that I actually managed to continuously swim 300 meters.
Mm.
And that's what I needed. That's essentially what building confidence is: experience of facing a fear and then realizing the fear is, far greater than the actual realization, in this case of drowning. And so I carried on, I did a bit of cycling, and that's what happened. I nearly drowned in the race. Everyone swam over me in the Noosa River. But I survived, and I did pretty well on the bike, and I did really well on the run. And it was so euphoric
Mm.
that I was buzzing, I was alive. And I knew that I didn't quite have my purpose, but I knew that that I was getting close. And so I reflected over the next couple of weeks, and I was searching, so I've got to do this again. I've got to find something bigger. And then I was watching it was pretty much a curiosity back in those days, whereas now it's kind of one of the blue ribbon ultra endurance events on the planet, which is the Hawaii Ironman, which is 14 times the swim that I just done, about 13 or 14 times the bike,
Wow.
and it was 15 times the run on the end. And I watched this, and I watched it on Wild Water Sports, and I knew that that was my goal. And I knew in that moment my purpose was to go out and find what I was capable of, how far I could push
Mm.
myself, what I could endure, and there would be thousands of tests along the way. So I said that was it. I suddenly found my purpose, and I wrote my purpose down, and I described it emotionally, what that purpose would mean. And then I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? And I'll talk about this again shortly. But then I actually developed a 90-day high performance plan, which is a
Mm.
rolling plan. And I've used that ever since in personal life, in sporting life, and in business, and in career, to ensure that every day I get up, and so I'm really clear, and all I have to do is park the enormous goal that sometimes can be so daunting that you can't even, becomes deflating, because you can't wrap your mind around how you're actually going to go from where you are today to this massive ask or
Mm.
goal in the future. And I've used that ever since. And so you park that, you just focus on what you need to do today, and then you just get up and do it with no
Mm.
excuses.
Yeah. And often that fear is, the fear of the future, right? Of what's not even here yet. And it's so
Always
important
is.
to stay present in the present moment. And often that fear just goes away,
It
because
does.
everything's okay. Yeah.
So you learn
Yeah.
that from experience, and that's how you build confidence. That's how, you build a positive and unlimited mindset. Is you try something, you practice, you try, you face a fear, you apply effort, you learn, and then you grow a little bit of confidence, and a little bit
Mm.
more and a little bit more. And so I was able to do that, and to the point that, my mindset was so positive every day,
Mm.
that I believed, that I didn't believe I was better than anybody else, and I've never ever thought that. But I believed, and I knew that, the only limit was my mind. So I said,
Yeah.
just developed an unlimited mindset. So
Yeah.
there were no boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a quote from Marilyn Monroe that says that the sky's not the limit, but the mind is the limit, you know.
It
And
is indeed, and my
yeah.
absolute favorite, which is Sir Edmund Hillary,
Mm.
which is, it's not the mountain that we conquer, but ourselves.
Yeah.
So I knew if I conquered my mind, I could go conquer mountains, and I've run up some pretty big mountains.
Mm. I can
And,
imagine.
and mountains metaphorically, mountains physically, and mountains metaphorically. I've,
Mm.
probably talk about it shortly, but I don't think I'm the unluckiest person in the world, but I face some pretty significant life challenges. And had I not developed that mindset, I would not
Mm.
have been able to overcome those challenges. Definitely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, absolutely. So for someone who's struggling to find purpose in their life, what
Yeah.
advice would you give them to take the first step?
Yeah, so it's really good. That's it's probably, excuse me, the most relevant and useful question. And I speak to people about, purpose and goals daily. So, well, maybe if I can talk about the things that people often do in the, not the most optimum order, which is why they don't get the optimum outcome.
Hmm.
People set goals, and the goal might be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. It might be, 45% of humans, half of humans on the planet, adult humans, they set goals in New Year's resolutions. And the top
Mm.
three, do you know what the top three are?
Fitness is one of them, I think.
Fitness
Yeah,
is one.
yeah. Stop for,
Fitness, health,
yeah.
well-being, and then the other is around creating wealth or accumulating money. But the top
Mm.
three are related to, you know, mental and physical health.
Who we are,
And
yeah.
91% of people fail within the first month and it's gone completely.
Mm.
And they fail because they don't have purpose behind it. And again, if you have a massive goal, whether it's creating wealth, money, security, unless there is purpose behind that, attaining that success can be relatively hollow
Mm.
because it doesn't have meaning. So when I talk to people about purpose, I ask them to think about, well, actually, here's the process. Okay, there is a process. For me, creating my legacy and changing my behaviors and habits, um, I call this the armchair test.
Hmm.
So when this happened, again, in conjunction with the sort of 90-day high performance plan, before that, I thought about how would I feel when I'm sitting in my armchair at the age of 60 or 65, at 60, how would I feel about my life? Because I've learned in my profession dealing in financial services with people specifically retiring, the greatest illness for most humans after the age of 60 is actually regret.
Mm.
And it's regret because they have all the time in the world to do all the things, they've kind of ever wanted to do, or all the time in the world to think. But the one thing they can't do is go back and change. So
Mm.
they have lots of time to think and they dwell on their life and what they should or shouldn't have done. I knew that. So I sat there and thought about how I would feel about my life as it is, but then how I would want to feel about my life. And so I wrote that down. And that defined my purpose because I wrote down, I would want to feel proud that I had faced my fears and given myself I'd gone after every opportunity with everything I had and that I never gave up. So that if I
Mm.
didn't achieve my goals, I would know in my heart that I'd given it absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And so that defined that essentially became my purpose, which I refined. And of course, I'm 60, and my life just keeps growing. My life is wonderful. I learn more, I do more. Hopefully,
Mm.
I become a better human being. I spend most of my time, either professionally in helping, coaching, and mentoring people in the programs. But I spend even more of my time helping people with for no return.
Mm.
Facebook every day is kind of lit up with people asking me things and saying, people saying, "Hey, you inspired me to change my life," and I love that. Apart from my
Yeah.
fitness now, that is my absolute purpose
Mm.
is to help other people, other humans, create their own limitless life. It doesn't have to be better than anyone. It's not actually a competition. If
No.
it's competition, it's a competition with yourself. And it's a
Self. Yeah.
competition to be able to go, yeah, you know what? I gave that my best shot. I have no
Yeah.
regrets.
Yeah. You only got to be better than yesterday, right? And you know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And and there will come a point, I've realized that, I managed even starting late, in my late 40s and 50s, I was competing at elite level with, you know, people half my age, and I was still able to do that and able to do it
Mm.
well. So there kind of comes a peak, obviously, when physically, where you're going to be challenged. At 60,
Mm.
you're going to be challenged. So again, that's why the reference point. is not everybody else. The reference point is only you, and you also
Yeah.
have to create some reality to that and some longevity. So yeah,
Yeah.
hence when you said, said to me just before, I set myself a goal and it was only 10 Ks. I don't believe there's an only, because
No.
for someone that's relatively sedentary and can't run, the joy of being able to run 5 or 10 kilometers is
Mm,
immense.
yeah.
So I know people that are exceptional athletes that don't get the same joy out of what they do with a
Yeah.
result as someone that runs 10 kilometers for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, having not run for 40 something years, apart from playing rugby and cricket, and then to set a goal and then 2 months later to actually achieve that goal,
Brilliant.
was
Priceless.
brilliant. And I remember I was like, I think I was a K away from the finish line, and I looked at my watch and I went, I can do this. Shit, I can do this. And I just pushed myself and I did it. I
Yeah,
did it. And, my goal was 1 minute 1 hour 10 seconds, and I did it in 1 hour 10 seconds and 10 minutes and 10 seconds. So
brilliant.
yeah, so yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that unlimited mindset. You've
Yeah.
spoken about overcoming, especially that neurological the captors, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain what it means
Okay.
and how it limits people from achieving their potential?
Yeah. Okay. So perhaps if I can, um, I mean, there are the sort of limiters, your
Mm,
neurological captors, which are, whether typically the environment you're raised in, how you're raised, what other people say and do around you, um, they all influence, and your
mm,
experience influences as well. So most people are relatively, they're captors or they're trapped because of
mm,
their fear. And so they don't they don't have a go at doing something that's outside of their comfort zone because their fear of the consequences is too great. So you actually have to, there's kind of a series of events, and they're not always absolutely sequential.
mm,
But for me, this is what worked. So obviously I faced my fears, but you need you need perspective and gratitude to create an unlimited mindset
mm,
and to be happy. So
mm,
this isn't just about what you achieve. This is about how you feel every day. And life is
mm,
a like every day is a gift. And every day that I developed that philosophy of every day that I live where I don't give it my best shot at something and I don't do good things or things that help people is a day wasted.
mm,
So because the days accumulate and they become months and become years, and the next thing you know, you're 60.
mm. Yeah.
So I have so firstly, two practices that for me are life-changing practices. The first is gratitude. And lots of humans don't gratitude, presence, and perspective. Lots of people live their lives without being present, without actually, just a simple enjoyment of the world, life. New Zealand's a beautiful place, Australia's a beautiful
Mm,
place. People are consumed even more so today by distractions and phones and messages. And every time you're doing that, you're not actually where you are. You're not looking at trees and ocean or just the beauty around us or connecting with other people. Connecting with other people is so important.
mm,
So presence, which comes from gratitude. So I started a daily practice. Actually, so let me go back. One thing that I'd heard someone say years before that I'd never actioned was to be truly successful, you must first do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it until you do. And
mm.
I lived by that for decades. And so when I woke in the morning, I didn't want to do something, I would overturn that thought and go, you know what? You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it now. That is success. So go and do it. And
Do
that's
it.
how I developed that 4 second rule.
Mm,
Well, most people wake up and they think about typically, what have I got to do today? That's kind of what's the day bring, and they set their mood up depending on whether they're fun things or, they're things that they don't want to do at work or difficult tasks or whatever. And so your mindset for the day starts, it's in a range, it's over here. It's either really super negative and full of dread, or it's over here and it's just super pumped and, you want, you're excited. We as humans have the ability to be able to influence where we sit on that scale at any time. In the first thing in the morning, it's so important. So I did, I started a mental gratitude ledger. And I would, if there was anything that would be troubling or worrying me, I kind of recorded it one part of my brain. And I encourage other people to do this, but to write it down. And you probably have one or two things, and then go to the other side, and you can almost have a running list of things that are positive. I don't know how many people, I know I do. I'm grateful every day that I have a roof over my head and that I can afford to buy food and I can afford to eat pretty well, which is vegan, by the way. And I feel grateful for that. I feel grateful for my family, for my friends. And you build this kind of gratitude ledger up, and it's like a set of scales. Visually, I would see it as a set of scales. What might seem that, when it's down like this, when you got worries, you do a gratitude ledger and it will just up in the other way. And all of a sudden you're positive and you can take things on and you're enthusiastic and you feel good about the world and you feel good about your life and yourself and everything around you. So daily gratitude practice. And I feel gratitude many, many times a day. Every time I have something that, that threatens that, I have a challenge, I just go, hey, what do I have so much to be grateful for. The other is perspective, because often worry and fear paralyze people. It detracts from their ability to be able to deal with things or little issues. And so I've kind of got also in my book, I talk about it, there's a perspective scale. And I talk about a nature one that I learned a very, very long time ago from someone else, which is think about the thing that you're facing right now that's worrying you today and put it somewhere on a scale. So to give you an example of the extremes on the scale, are you in the middle of the ocean, 100 kilometers from shore, there are no ships in sight, your boat's gone down, you were fishing, and you're being circled by fins, big fins. You're not going to survive. You're going to die. And the other end of the scale is, are you at a barbecue with friends and you got a mosquito trying to bite your ankle or something like that? And there's all these sort of analogies of, wildlife analogies. And I've always lived by that, to the point that I go to, people will talk to me about something. I go, hey, you're about to, get eaten by sharks in the middle of the ocean, or is that a mosquito bite? Or is it the next one up? Is it a dog? You're out walking and a dog's trying to get out of the gate to, grab hold of your trousers and shake them or whatever. Where is it? Will it be something that when you get to 60 is defining in your life? Will you even remember this moment, this worry, in a year's time or 2 years' time? And do you remember what was worrying you this week, a year ago? The answer is probably you won't. So I call it, don't sweat the small stuff. So put it into perspective. Is it life-threatening for you or your family? Is someone going to die? Yeah, that's worth worrying about. And, that's as sad and as serious as it gets. So you need to take action around that. But so put it in perspective. Don't stress. Stress kills. Stress kills people early. Physical and mental stress kills people. And so you need to reduce that stress and that inflammation and put it in perspective and get on with your life and get on with enjoying today and get on with making the most. And or you need to stop worrying, de-escalate the concern and come up with solutions. Do not dwell on problems. Go to solutions. And when you have a positive mindset and your experience is that you can resolve things and you can overcome things and you can help other people, you immediately go to, right, I'm going to think about how we're going to solve that. Think about whatever it is, think about the outcome that you want or need or your family needs or family wants, and focus solely on that, because you will start moving positively and taking steps towards getting an outcome instead of sitting there, paralyzed or, or upset or really sad from worry.
Mm, mm,
So
yeah,
presence, gratitude, perspective.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is the foundation, that is the absolute foundation of happiness and success and the creating an unlimited mindset,
Yeah,
because you just feel good and you get positive energy. And of course, as if you're your purpose, and it might be, you know my purpose is I want to be really healthy and fit. So what does that mean? How will that feel? And that becomes a purpose and a solution, as opposed to I want to lose weight. Wanting to lose weight has no meaning. That's why most people in New Year's resolutions that say I want to lose weight fail.
mm,
And there's a second reason, I'll talk about this in a second, is they fail to plan. So your
mm,
purpose must be emotional and incredibly important to you. And that's how you should write a purpose out. Because when you're doubting, you're having a tougher day, and you look at your purpose because it's printed out up there, it's in your screensaver, where it is, you go, yeah, that's
that's
what I'm
right.
going to do. That's
Yeah,
why I'm here. That's what gets me excited. And
yeah,
I'm going after that. Push this other stuff. This is what will change my life or my family's life, my friend's life. This is what will be truly meaningful to me.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you've said, and especially those 3 points as well, the principles. And Lewis Howes talks about this in his Greatness Mindset book about purpose, and then purpose, passion, and so passion. Uh, I'm trying to remember what the 3 Ps were
Yeah.
now. One of them was problem, what problem you can solve. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And look, and there are lots of similar books. I mean, a friend of mine in the US, Trunis Goggins, who's actually David's brother.
Oh yeah.
His book is The Three Ps, and yeah, he gave me a nice compliment and told me I was a refined version of David Goggins. So that was kind of. I said I'll bank that. I don't think I'm David, but
No.
I'll bank that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's purpose.
Yeah. I just remembered it's your passion, your power,
Yeah,
and the problem that you can. So what is your passion? What's something that you're going to do that you can do, or you would do, even if you didn't get paid, you'd jump out of bed to do it. What is the
absolutely.
power? What is the power that you've got? What's the strengths you've got within you, the skills,
Yeah.
and what problem can you solve? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
again, my passion is this. My
Mm,
passion is, and it definitely, my passion is to go, how many people can I connect with that I can give
mm,
something of what I've learned,
yeah.
whether it's through podcasts, my book, coaching, whatever. How can I get people to start on a different pathway in life?
Mm,
My purpose now at 60 is as great
mm,
as it's ever been. I love it. I
yeah.
get up in the morning and go, wow, I'm going to go help tons of people today.
Absolutely.
How cool
Yeah.
is that?
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's why I started my journey a couple of years ago on the same, because I
And
was
here you
just,
are.
yeah, here I am. I was just
Brilliant.
revolving. Yeah. And so
Brilliant.
yeah,
Well done.
yeah, thank you. So let's talk about thriving through adversity. So your
Yeah.
story includes countless setbacks, including 35 hospitalizations.
Yeah.
Um, how did you use those adversities to fuel your determination rather than letting them defeat you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go back to, I mean, I had a bunch of broken bones and hospitalizations, my teens. When I came to Australia, I was 18, um, and I got hit by a guy who had been drinking,
Mm,
and I nearly died. And
mm,
I fractured my skull in multiple places. I fractured my jaw in 16 places. I fractured my cheek. I lost kind of half my teeth. My teeth were
mm,
coming through here. My jawbone was coming through here. And I recall waking up very groggy after a 6 or 7 hour operation, which, some of that was to restructure and some of it was to save my life. And I sat there and so I was laying there and I was kind of looking around. Here I was, 18 years of age, so much promise, young and healthy. And my life had been kind of changed in an instant. And I felt a great deal of self-pity. And then I suddenly had this wave, I looked around me and I went, you know what, there's kids and there's people in this hospital that aren't going home.
Mm,
They sadly, um, they're in a way worse situation than me. I'll come back. I'm alive. And that was
mm,
the first time I felt I turned adversity and instantly into gratitude. And I knew
mm,
from that point I had that kind of power. Um, I had, and so that was kind of where it first started. Um, but the real, I had some, I've had three incidents. I've had three times I've been hit by a truck while training on my bike. Each of
mm,
them have been close to life threat, or one was life threatening. One time I just smashed my head up and broke my helmet in two, and I had 10 fractured ribs. Another time I fractured a whole bunch of vertebrae, another, and anyway, the list goes on. I've torn enormous areas of skin off myself. And each time that happened, I went, you know what? This is a challenge. This is a
mm,
challenge for you to work out what your character is, Jason. This is your test. You can
mm,
either sulk, you can either give up, uh, or you can actually fight and try harder.
mm,
And so I use that adversity and that disaster, and I've used adaptive failure. Failure is so important.
mm,
So apart from the hospitalizations, uh, I that was one of the things that fueled me. The other thing was failure. Failure fueled me like nothing else. So
mm,
I had, I talked before about, um, you know, going back to my purpose. My purpose was to find out what I was capable of achieving
mm,
and how far I could, what I could endure. And so it actually kind of fitted in with that. I just went, you know what? This is another test, Jason. There's another test that,
mm,
you're going to repay this. There's another
mm,
test to see if, you can step up. And maybe if I can, if it's okay, I just want to talk about, a couple of my greatest disasters or failures because they fueled me more than anything else. So
mm,
yes, I had this 5-year goal to qualify for the Hawaii Ironman World Championships, but in a my goal was that, so I then need to work that backwards, and I worked it backwards. So I actually had to figure out how on earth I was going to qualify, do a half Ironman in Australia, and qualify for the Australian Ironman. So that was kind of my 12-month goal, um, and then so that was my 12-month goal, and then I built a 90-day high performance plan which maximized every day. But I went after qualifying for Hawaii with everything I had. I mean, I had a senior job. I was traveling, had family. So I kind of had to jettison some things. So I turned my friendships, became sort of work friendships because I didn't go out really much and socialize. The rest of the time was family or training. And so that fueled me. And I had some terrible disasters. I went to the long distance world championships in Nice, which I trained hard for to race in my age group for Australia. And I got a I got a severe dose of the flu when I was in Nice 5 days before the
mm,
race, and I tried everything to kind of get right. I knew I wasn't right. I stood on the beach, starting line, 2 kilometer swim, 2,000 athletes went into the water. Everyone swam over the top of me, and 150 meters later, I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating, and I had to put my hand up for the dinghy to come and rescue me.
mm,
It was not only the cost of that, but the excitement and a year of absolutely relentless, dedicated training completely went. And I remember I can see it so clearly going back in this boat, thousands and thousands of supporters. I was just felt about embarrassed and ashamed. And I
mm,
got back onto the beach and I went back to my bike and I sat there and I realized that this was so heartbreaking that I had to bottle this. I had to remember every moment of this
mm,
all day. I had to remember this pain and go, you know what? This means something. This is going to test who you are, and this is going to fuel you. And can I tell you, for many years, that disaster fueled me. I went, took my
mm,
bike back, went to see my family, I came back to watch everybody in their elation finish their swim. I came back to watch them come back on their bike. I came to watch them finish the marathon and then wander around that evening with their medals around, feeling fantastic, because I wanted to bottle the power of that failure and loss, even though it wasn't my fault.
Mm.
And I carried that with me for years. I could just, when I was training and it got really tough, I just conjure up that and go, I'm going to repay that. I'm going to find redemption.
Mm.
And so near and dear to my heart, New Zealand is a wonderful, beautiful place. I have loads of friends there. I've been there lots of times. Been to Taupo to race in New Zealand Ironman 4 times. I just got to tell you this. Well, I'm probably going to give away some of the stuff in my book, but so the third time I went, I thought, I'd got a bit, cocky. I thought I was bigger than the race. I was going to smash this thing. I was going to qualify for Hawaii that day, and I blew it. It was really cold. I got my plan went wrong. I didn't stick to my plan. I went too hard. I didn't have enough nutrition, hydration. And I got to the point on the bike when you're coming back towards Taupo and there's a false flat and there's a massive headwind.
Mm.
And my head had been telling me many, many, many times, so I wanted, you just got to quit. Why are you doing this? It's that devil on your shoulder. And I quit. It was the only time I've actually quit. And getting transported back in the truck, I remember sitting there vividly, then questioning myself, going, "What? You actually feel better now. Why didn't you just wait 2 minutes? Why didn't you wait 5 minutes? Maybe you could have done more. Maybe you could have just got the job done." But what I've done in my head is gone, I feel stuffed. My goal today was the Hawaii Ironman qualifying. Been chasing it for years. I'm not going to get it. Yeah, I'm just going to pack it in. And I really disliked myself. And I knew going back that I could convince everyone around me why I stopped, why there was a good reason, how I felt. But the only person I couldn't convince was myself. And that's what mattered the most, because I had to live with that. So I came back the next year to face my demons, and I I still went fast. I had a little bit more humility. You know what? I got some things wrong. And for 20 kilometers going back towards town, the same thing was happening in my head. And I knew that this was probably almost the most important moment of my life, because if I quit this, I would just quit. When the going got tough, I would quit. So what I did was, you can do this sort of project yourself forward and transference, which I learned to do, which is when it's really, really tough, whatever it is in life, project yourself forward and imagine how you will feel. So what I did was imagine I'm on my bike, I'm thinking, Jason, you've got two choices. You can either feel like you did last time, and I bottled that one too, when we're in the hotel room or the house we'd rented, and you can feel ashamed and all these other things and question yourself. Well, you know what? You can actually just guts it out. Let's just finish this race today. Let's just get it done. You hope for Hawaii again. You trained all year for Hawaii. But you know what? What's really important is how you feel about yourself and just finishing. So okay, I'm going to back it off a little bit. I'm going to finish this thing. I'm not going to go to where I was, the depths of where I was before. So I kind of did that. Got into the tent, started running, and my legs suddenly felt pretty good. I went, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So I'd recalibrate. I'd gone from an expectation for a year, I hope that I'd qualify for Hawaii, down to the bottom of, hey, I might fail here, and if I fail, I might never come back because I quitted last time. So then giving it a go, recalibrating, and I went, you know what? My goal now is, one, to finish, but two, maybe I can run the fastest Ironman marathon I've ever run. And so I started to run, and I ran the fastest marathon I've run in an Ironman. And I won't tell you the outcome, because I actually reckon that's a pretty decent part of the book. Is the qualifying ceremony, a bunch of other stuff. Like, it was, I'll cry, I'll probably have tears in my eyes anyway, that's a really good part in the book.
Get the book and read it.
Yeah. But those things fueled me. So the more, people laughed at me, the more that kind of fueled me.
Mm.
And I remember one thing. I remember, I've been laughed at a bunch of times in my life, and I remember my first when I converted to ultra running, and I went to fortunately got into the Western States 100 miler, which is probably one of the blue ribbon most prestigious 100-mile trail races in the world. I had actually never run a trail race of any description before that. So there's 162 Ks, 100 miles, 162 Ks, all between 5 and 11,000 feet above sea level, 40,000 feet in elevation change during the day,
Mm.
rocks, gullies, rivers, snow, 100 degrees in the canyons.
Mm.
When I got there, I was interviewed by a film crew and they laughed at me. They laughed when I said, they said, what other races, trail races have you done? What are you, prepared for? And I went, this is it, guys. This is my first ever trail race. And they just laughed.
Mm.
But you know what? That fueled me more.
Mm. Mm.
That
Absolutely.
fueled me
Yeah.
more.
So what would you say to people listening to this podcast about reframing failures as opportunities for growth?
Firstly, if you want to find greatness of any description, and greatness does not mean you're better than other people. Greatness is your own definition of greatness.
Mm.
And greatness is you achieve something that perhaps once you thought was impossible or you couldn't do. That's the greatest form of greatness, whether it's family, business, life,
Mm.
running, whatever. Um, that you're going to fail. If you want to extend yourself outside your comfort zone and push yourself, you're going to fail. So accept it,
Mm.
but learn from it.
Yeah.
Learn and work out what did you not do well? What did you do wrong? What can you change for next time? And just get on with it. You know,
Mm.
you got to, if you have a really good, solid 90-day plan, just get on with it. But
Mm.
learn and use that to go, okay, I'm one step closer to my own greatness. I have to fail to become great. If you
Yeah.
do not fail, you're actually not pushing towards greatness and it won't mean anything.
Yeah.
The irony is, as you know, that you must have failure, you must have struggle.
Mm.
Struggle defines us. If you do or achieve anything without struggle, it's actually meaningless.
Mm.
And you know what? Can I just give a couple of monetary examples of that? People who win the lottery, a vast majority of people that win any sort of lottery have less money than they did before they won the lottery 12 months
Mm.
later. And in some ways, you have this great euphoria, but it's meaningless because it's not 20 years where you struggled and toiled and overcome.
Mm.
So often it's actually not about the money. It's how you feel about what you do in life
Mm.
and the shot that you give it to get somewhere.
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah, absolutely. It's always about the feeling, right? It's how. Yeah.
Because we're humans. So
Yeah.
it's how you rewire your brain to go, failure, yeah, I've learned from that. That's going to power me on. Or, when you're struggling, most people are struggling, they're worried, they're stressed, whatever. It's about being able to instantly change that so you can change your mindset and go, actually, what? Struggle's good
Mm.
because how I will feel when I overcome this struggle and achieve, that's the yin yang, that's the opposite. The greatest, sense of accomplishment and value and happiness you get out of something is when
Mm.
you've had to sacrifice, struggle, and put an enormous amount into something. It's this sense of, it's not ego, it's not better than anyone else. It's just this, internal pride.
Mm.
And if you think about, so, failure, struggle, bring them on. They are actually the pathway to success.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Because your success is on the other side of that failure. It's just you may be just one step away from it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Who knows when it is? You may be
Exactly.
100.
Yeah. But if you keep
Yep.
going, never give up. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it helps to smile.
Yeah. You
Helps to
know,
smile.
Yeah.
There's a few things I did to change my psychology and mindset. Um, One is I banished a whole bunch of words 25 years ago from my vocabulary
Yeah.
and from my mindset. They occasionally pop in. Um, and because, what we say and do influences us and people around us. And so
Absolutely.
I'd set about this exercise just to find 10 words that were highly toxic I could take away from my mindset and my vocabulary. I only came up with four, which was really good. But and so I set about banishing them because they influenced my mind. And the first one was hard. You go, "Oh, that's hard. Get rid of it." You tell
Mm,
yourself it's hard, it's going to be hard. You're going to
mm,
fight it.
mm,
The other one was disappointed or disappointment, because when you say that, especially because you're normally saying about someone else, it's a highly judgmental, toxic thing to
mm,
say.
mm,
Hate, hate's at the top. You listen to people's mindsets, like getting a lift at work and you get someone goes, "Oh, the bus was 3 minutes late this morning. Oh, I hate that." And the
mm,
other person goes, "Yeah, I hate that too."
mm,
And you're listening thinking, really? Is
mm,
that what you hate? The
mm,
bus was 3 minutes late. There's hundreds of millions of people in this world that don't even have a bus. They probably
mm,
don't have enough water or enough
mm,
food. And you're moaning about being 3 minutes late. You have set up your mindset for the day and a whole bunch of other things
mm.
based on hate.
Yeah. And each of those words has a vibrational energy attached to it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so whatever energy you're putting out is what you're going to bring back to yourself.
Absolutely, Anthony.
Yeah, yeah.
So smile. If I'm into a 7 hour training run, and one of my favorites was running up and down a single 1.5 kilometer hill in Sydney, and I
Mm,
sort of do that. I do 30 k's up, 30 k's down. I do 20 loops of that over 6 hours, and the sun's
mm,
beating down. It's 30 degrees, and I'm 4 hours in, and my head's starting to go. This is natural. This is hard. I get rid of that, and I smile.
mm.
Big smile.
Yeah,
And you know what? It changes my whole demeanor. I might have to do that a few more times before I'm finished, but it changes your whole demeanor and your mindset, your outlook.
yeah. And it's so true about what the subconscious mind doesn't know between imagine and reality. So if you're if
Absolutely.
you're constantly um, coming from those lower frequency energy frequencies, or those mindsets,
Yeah,
then that's you're just going to bring more of that, and that's what's wherever your attention goes, your energy is going to flow. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Spot on.
absolutely. So what process for creating high performance plan that what's the process that sort of makes it count every day?
Okay. So again, in that's a kind of there's quite a bit on that in my book, Unlimited.
Mm,
But essentially, it's a pretty simple. It's not a 40-page plan. I've got a template which I'm kind of happy to send to anyone that wants to get in touch, or it's in my book and I describe how to use it. But basically, you can only focus on a couple of things. Focus on a couple of things at one time. So,
mm,
kind of got a few columns. One is an objective, and you can kind of have two objectives for things that you're trying to change in your life, and they might have some purpose in them as well. And
mm,
then you have a targets or measures of success. There's 30, 60, and 90 days. And then
mm,
you quite simply got some actions, an action column that you must take to achieve each of those objectives. So let me give you a really great example. For instance, where I set out, my objective was to go find what I was capable of
mm,
and how far I could push myself. And I took my sort of 5 year Hawaii plan down to 1 year, which was I am going to qualify and race the Australian Ironman. So that was my
mm,
objective. Now, I needed to go from 300 meters swim, 12K bike ride, and a 3K run to 14 times that at a certain speed,
mm,
which was, almost debilitating. So I
mm,
baked it down. I worked it backwards and I went, okay, well, where do I need to be in 9 months, 6 months, 3 months,
mm,
2 months, 1 month? And I just populated it. So I set stretch goals, but realistic expectations, because I'm not going to suddenly be running a marathon a day, etc. So I had my 30-day measure of success across a couple of things. And then simply what it was that I needed to do is action. So it's not war and peace. You can sit it on your wall, you could have it on your screensaver, and just reminds you constantly, amongst your very busy, chaotic life, that this is what's going to change your life. So it's like focusing and reprioritizing to go, actually, you know what? I know I'm super busy, but I got to find time to do that. I need to do that today. And the philosophy is you actually create this focused incremental increase that you roll every 90 days towards a much bigger purpose and goals and outcome. And you just get up and maximize, you make the most of every day, because every day is an opportunity to progress, to do better, to move along. It's so easy to let days or weeks go by. But you let a couple of weeks go by, you know what? You're not going to hit that massive goal in 12 months' time, whether it's running, triathlon, sport, whether it's business, career, whether it's a family goal, whether it's a accumulating security and wealth goal. So you just need to chunk it down on a daily basis. And then, Anthony, you hold yourself accountable. So this is what you got to do. If you said that's your 30-day measure of success and that's what you're going to do, guess what? The only person generally that you can, is to blame if they don't get done is you, because you said you're going to do these actions. And that's where you bring on this, what's an excuse? You need to decide this. And what's a reasonable reason? And if something happens to someone in your family and they're really ill or whatever, yeah, you know what? That's a reasonable reason. But you have to decide on all these things that are you're going to put into the excuses basket and say, they're excuses. I cannot, I'm feeling tired. I don't have enough time. They're excuses. They're reasons. Your brain is telling you, it's validating why you're not going to put in the discretionary effort today to create a better future. It is as simple as that. And for me, it's the war that rages between your heart and your head.
And your head, and it's priorities, right? Like if something's so important to you,
Absolutely.
you'll put the time in.
Yeah.
You'll get to bed early so that you wake up early and go and do
Absolutely.
your thing.
Get up earlier. The most successful people on this planet, I'm not one of them, and there are loads of them. I tell you, most of them, that's what they do. They don't always need the same amount of sleep, but early rise. And there's something special for me, it's one of those wonderful things to go for a bike ride or a run or do something, watch the sun come up, or, when other people are sedentary and asleep and whatever, you are out there getting into the day. That fills you with physical and mental, and positivity. The blood's going through your body. You're thinking. You've owned your own space. I used to take my youngest son. Some of my kids were earlier than that, but when he was young, he was 2 years old. I take him for a 20K run in the stroller in the morning because I had to. Well, not because I had, like it was how we coped, and we had a brilliant time together. High fiving the other people that were up early in the morning. So how important is that? And that is why purpose drives everything, because it makes you, it gets the heart going, and no excuses.
Yeah. And the only one that can limit ourselves is us, right? And so if you want to build that confidence in yourself, it's about repetition, it's about consistency, and that consistency is going to help you build competency and confidence.
And some discipline. And that actually helps you create habits, so that what happens is your psychology is, I know if I go and do this, I'm going to be successful and I'll feel good, therefore I'm going to do it, which is you must first do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it until you do. And the until you do is because you know from experience that will make you feel good. That will make you, define you, and that will, propel you towards your greatness.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about being a well human, right? So in your book, you've talked about the connection between the mindset, nutrition, and also overall well-being. How is focusing in these areas transform your life?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I've evolved a lot. I've learned a lot. I learn every day now. That's one thing I love about life is you learn from other people. And, there wasn't so much information around, when I was really first started. And one of the things I changed along the way was my diet. So
Mm,
these days I have a few beers, but I stopped drinking completely because I probably drank too much. And, it didn't make you feel really, pumped to get up at whatever time in the morning to go training. It just was
mm,
suboptimal. So,
mm,
but then I changed my diet. I read a lot of stuff about, vegetables and fruit and healthy diet and a bunch of stuff. So I'm not here to say this is the right way. This was the right way for me, and this is the
for you.
difference that it made. But you know, uh, physical health is about specifically about exercising. It's about mostly nutrition, and it's about your gut. And so I went, you know what? I'm going to become vegetarian, but I'm going to eat a bit of fish as well. And I became vegetarian. And it was within 4 days, I could feel my whole digestive system change.
Mm,
One of the most common, um, killers is actually, is a low fiber diet,
mm,
um, and the absence of lots of foods that have anti-inflammatory qualities, which is physically and mentally. So, I was getting much older and I was competing really seriously, like with people half my age. I'd had all these accidents, and I'm going, what's going to give me the edge? How can I train twice a day and continually back up? So I was experimenting with things. So then I went vegan, and that was a whole new level again. Was stopping pretty much butter and cheese and the rest of it.
mm,
And you find all these fantastic flavors, and you eat these foods that when you're eating them, you almost feel like they're going to make a difference to you. Your body absorbs them really quickly. Your whole digestive system is really highly effective. And, like one of the things, one of the golden rules. So you are what you eat and what you say and kind of what you do, but you are
mm,
what you eat. And, when I go away, we recently went away went to Italy. And I noticed within 3 or 4 days of not having my usual diet and my kind of regular, you know, multi-fruit veg smoothie, my whole digestive, my whole started to shut down. You could physically feel like you felt bloated and it shut down. And so I know that that makes a massive difference, not only to physical, but to mental health. You need the right
mm,
fuel, you need all of the right dietary, qualities to actually get your brain to operate
mm,
really well,
mm, mm,
to operate highly effectively. So diet is just so important. And if you're an athlete, your body's like a sponge within 15 minutes of exercising. So you need to consume and replace as much as you can because, I was backing up twice a day. When
mm,
I've run some of the ultras, I know you said 100K ultras. Well, 100Ks was the shortest I would run.
mm,
I've been to race the ultra over the Himalayas, where you're running up mountains above 18,000 feet where there's 45% oxygen,
mm,
333 Ks. I was running 250 to 300 kilometers per week at the
mm,
same time as I was a CEO of a national company.
mm,
So I would run a marathon every day. I'd run half marathon in the morning, half marathon at night on the way home. I'd leave work at 7 o'clock. I'd run a half marathon. And then on Sunday, I'd run 70 Ks. And then every other every other week, I'd run 100 kilometers. I'd go to work. And then that night, I'd just run 100 kilometers through the night. I'd rest for an hour and then I'd go to work.
wow.
So um, you have to continually, you know, take, natural anti-inflammatories so your muscles recover and they strengthen. And
Mm,
that is just so important. If there's anything anyone's going to do to get your mind and your body right is eat well. And I got to say, I'm not being critical, but you watch most human beings, they eat at the wrong times, they eat too much, they eat the wrong foods. You're never going to feel, and they probably don't know any different because that's what they've always done. You're never going to feel alive,
mm,
and you're never going to achieve one of those three goals that most human beings want, which is, fitness, health, and well-being and weight. You're never going to achieve unless you control what you consume.
mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Before we do the quick fire questions, what's your advice around transforming from stress, anxiety into sort of getting more calm?
Again, I just to go back before, I can tell you now, what you eat and drink will
Mm,
have a massive impact and influence. And like I was a bit of a sugar monster once upon a time. Sugar, and I knew, your brain craves it. You get excited, you have it, you get a high, and then you go woof, straight back down.
yeah.
And you kind of do that all day when you're doing that. So, the only sugar I have is kind of natural sugar, really, in fruit. And so I kind of quit all of that stuff. But it's being able to control your mindset and your emotions and not control, influence them,
Mm,
and that is gratitude and perspective.
yeah.
You know, physically, there are lots of veg and fruit that have high anti-inflammatory qualities naturally, but it's about your ability to be able to make yourself still, put into, the stress of whatever it is, put it into perspective. Is it going to kill me? Is it going to kill someone in my family? And you slowly go down. You go, right, okay, that's not too bad. I can find a solution to that. Stress goes down.
Mm,
But it's also presence. And, one of the greatest, here's the greatest example of lack of presence. You know, uh, I've been on holiday, go away lots, and you go away and you kind of go to somewhere nice, maybe it's somewhere tropical and you're at a resort or whatever. Go to dinner and you watch the amount of families that are sitting there in a beautiful location all together, no other distractions, and they're all reading their phones.
mm,
They're reading their phones. They're
mm,
completely disconnected. They are not present. And we can all get that. I find myself, I'm the same because my purpose is connecting with people via social media so I can help them. And you just have to constantly remind yourself that when you're on the phone, when you're doing that with someone else and you're reading other stuff, you are not with the people you love, and you're
mm,
not present, enjoying this wonderful moment. And you will just continue to do that.
mm,
What is your purpose?
yeah.
So that's how you enjoy the presence and the moment. You find a solution for the thing that's concerning you about tomorrow and next week or whatever. Don't just worry about it, because
Mm,
that will take away, that will, create anxiety. You won't be happy. That will reduce your longevity, your ability to be able to stay well, fit and healthy and strong.
mm, Awesome. Thank you. All right. So before we kick into this, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
First of all, what does it mean to be a champion in your life? And also, what is a champion mindset to you?
So to be a champion is, again, for me, is my own determination of greatness.
Mm,
And to be a champion, to be a champion is not actually winning. And like I've done some pretty, and at 46, 47, I was 2 years in a row, I was a silver medalist at the Australian 100K road running championships. I was just saying to you, I'd run 100 kilometers and at an average pace of 4 minute 45-second kilometers. Um, to me, a champion and greatness is about holding yourself accountable and actually going, you know what? I did my best.
mm,
I didn't take the easy road. I chose to welcome struggle. I chose to sort of give life its best shot every day. That for
mm,
me is being a champion. Being a
yeah.
champion is being able to look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? I gave it my best shot.
Mm,
I
absolutely.
gave it my best shot, whether it's today, yesterday. And I do have a daily reflection. I have a multi-day reflection, which is about asking myself what I did and achieved today. And when I say achieved, it doesn't mean winning something. It means, you know, did I do my best to help other people, other
Mm,
humans, from what I've learned, to go on a different pathway in their life?
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right. So, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Well, it's changed over time because for me, I've worked in financial services, so I'm acutely aware of creating financial success and security. Yeah, but that's not about, how. So for me, that what that does is that enables you to have the freedom um, to be able to go do more meaningful and helpful things, or to help other people. So my definition of success, in that aspect has gone from, once upon a time I just wanted to earn money and, accumulate a lot of money, and I don't think it was even about ego then, but then it became purposeful. Um, and in terms of achievement, that's gone from uh, trying to win races or trying to do my best and get a great outcome as a result, to success is happiness,
Mm. Yeah.
whatever it is that brings you happiness.
Yeah.
And if you're doing things and you're doing well and they don't make you happy, then that's not success.
Yeah.
Absolutely the definition of success that's changed for me over time, and that I would really, stress, is, if it don't make you happy, don't do it.
Mm. Yeah.
And that is about purpose, is defining what will make you happy when you achieve it. And the other is, it kind of sounds pretty corny, but it is about the journey, not the destination.
Oh
I
yeah.
know lots of people that don't have real purpose but set goals. They do one, they go chase another
Mm.
and another, and then that's going to diminish at some stage, because you're not going to be
Mm.
able to continue to be a faster athlete in your 70s. You may be a great athlete, but you're not going to be, your capability at 70 physical is not the same as at 30.
No.
So success, and to be truly successful in life, you must first do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do until you do. That definition of success has changed, and it is only about happiness
Mm.
and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And so, whatever, I can't define what happiness is for someone, only you can. And happiness is purpose, but that's what it is.
Mm.
And so,
Cool.
when you make goals and you think about what will make you happy.
Mm. Thank you. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Ooh, obviously there hasn't been anyone absolutely in particular. Um, my, and again, I talk about this in my book and the start. Probably one of my grandmothers,
Mm.
both my grandmothers, because they taught me really good old-fashioned values
Mm.
very early on. And I'm going to use the word hard. It's not because I think it's hard, but when I was young, I actually learned the value, both monetary and from a pride perspective, of working really hard. So I would go to my grandmother's, as a young teen, even younger, and I'd go stay some of the summer with my brother, and we would go fruit picking in England. And it was one of the rare, it's not many times in the year where the sun comes out, so it's pretty warm. We go strawberry picking and blackberry picking. And there I was at 12, doing a really hard 8 hours picking strawberries. Your fingers are stained, your knees are sore. And I learned that, an 8 pound punnet of strawberries was worth, or 6 pounds was worth 8 pence. And so I challenged myself to see how many of those that I could do. And it was that incredibly satisfying feeling of knowing I worked really hard and I
Mm.
earned a good day's pay. And that kind of set me up for life. And I learned a lot from my grandma. She was tough, man. The stuff that we complain about that's tough. She worked till the age of, they made her retire doing a 17-mile milk round in the UK in the days when they had crates of glass bottles. She would load a float up with glass bottles, up to the top on her own. She refused to let a man help her. And they
Mm.
made her retire, I think it was 64, when the compulsory retirement age was 60. I remember going with her one year, when I was maybe 10, and it was snowing. It was bitterly cold, and we went out at 4:30 in the morning, and she would pull this sled. She would get the milk crates off her cart because she couldn't drive it, and she put them on a sled and she'd pull them and she'd deliver the milk. Tough, but that was her purpose, and people
Mm.
loved her.
Mm.
And she did some tough, both my grandparents, did some incredibly tough things, and it's about values and character. And so that's who I think I actually learned the most from. But I
Yeah.
find inspiration everywhere, and
Yeah.
that's changed. It was sporting icons and all sorts of people, but I've grown up a great deal, and you got to look for it everywhere. You can choose to find the negative in life, or you can choose to find the positivity and the inspiration. And these days, I just get inspired by people that fall into terrible situations in life, whether they're their fault or you know or the circumstance, and stuff happens, and they find that ability, that spark to, maybe they reach the bottom and they go, you know what, that's enough. I'm going to make a choice to change my life, and I'm going to start doing this, and they turn their life around. I
Mm.
admire that courage, and they're everywhere. And the more you look for it, the more you find those people, Anthony.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. If you could go back to your younger self, what would be one piece of advice you'd give them yourself?
Yeah, this is a really curious one because I mean, I've been asked this lots of times. Um, I don't go back. I actually, you know, and one of the thoughts that I have is like those crucial moments in life, um, that change your life, especially where you make the wrong choice. The
Mm.
only ability, you have to decide from that moment or very shortly thereafterwards that you will change
Mm.
that, and that is all the value. So if I no regrets. You can't change something, or you can change is what you change today. So I don't think I could actually give myself anymore because I've constantly practiced being a better self
Mm.
and learning from that experience. So if I can go back and share that with other people, I think that's probably more pertinent, if that's okay, is do the armchair test.
Mm.
Evaluate, kind of do evaluate your life now and reflect and say, imagine myself at 60 or 65 or 70, looking back, if nothing much changes, how will I feel about myself and my life? Will I be okay with, when I took the easier road or I missed that opportunity? Or will I feel deep regret? Because if that's what I'm going to feel, then you got to change it now because there is only
Mm.
today.
Yeah.
So that's what I would strongly encourage people to do, because you kind of need this, emotional momentum and psychological momentum to go, I'm going to change. I ain't going to take the easier road. I'm not going to, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning at this time and I'm going to go for a really good fast walk. I'm going to be amongst the world in my environment. I'm going to change the outcome.
Mm.
Or this
Yeah.
afternoon. If you can do it this afternoon, go do it this afternoon.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
Yeah. Absolutely. What is something that you agree with that other people would disagree with?
Ooh.
That you believe, sorry, something that you believe that other people would disagree with.
Um, I don't know. I probably have lots, I think, differently probably to many people. That doesn't necessarily make me right. I don't know. Maybe when I say sometimes you gotta have no excuses,
Mm.
I think people would see that as being potentially a little kind of controversial and harsh, which is
Mm.
why I caveat that where I said before, there are reasonable reasons, and there's a scale, and it's in your head, it's what you accept. So I actually, apart from something serious with my family, I accepted no excuse. So for instance, a time when I got hit by a truck and I lost very had four very large areas of skin about this big, where I'd taken off 2 layers of skin, and I was actually part of a test program where they put plastic skin over the whole of my back and
Hmm.
both my butt cheeks. And that was actually when I was preparing for, that was when I just qualified for the Australian Ironman. It was 4 or 5 months away. I didn't accept that as that wasn't, I didn't accept that as a reasonable reason why I couldn't begin training as soon as possible. So 8 days later, I'm out running with plastic skin on.
Mm. Mm.
Uh,
Wow.
So I did not accept that as an excuse. And every other time bad stuff like that's happened to me, I don't, in my head, I just don't accept it as an excuse, because as soon as I do, I'll be overcome and I will not achieve what I said I was going to go and achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. What is one last message that you would like to share with the world?
Go and buy my book. No, definitely not. You can edit that one out if you like.
No, it sounds like a great story to read.
Yeah, but hey, you face your fears.
Yeah.
Face your fears. Do not become a captor to your fears, and own your legacy before it owns you. My book is a prime example. I've always been a very, private person. Um, and I didn't do social media other than LinkedIn, because it was professional, it was business. So this new, more exciting part of my journey, where I took a year to write my story, I had to put my life out there,
Mm.
and that was a huge thing for me. It was a fear. Like I put so much into this, and I would go through those doubts of, what if no one wants to read this, and I put it out there? What if people read it and they think it's crap?
Mm.
Whatever. And I went, you know what? You've lived so much of your life going, you know what? What's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen was I did it. I felt proud of it. No one else liked it. That's
Mm.
okay. It
Mm.
didn't stop me from doing it. And then the next level of that is, to help people and also to help promote awareness. I have had to do a whole bunch of social media, which for me was, like, what's going to happen here? I have to put myself out there. It'll probably sound like I'm talking myself up. You know what? I'm actually trying to get people excited about what's possible and what I learned. And that was tough in the beginning, because I had people say some pretty crap things. But I've refocused and went, you know what? What's the worst? I don't even know this person. I know who I am. And for every one person that thinks it's appropriate to say something negative and harmful, there's 100 people that'll be inspired. I'm going to focus on those 100 people, not on
Mm.
this one person that
Mm.
can't help themselves. So
Yeah.
face your fears and do it today. The things that scare you are actually the things that are most meaningful and worthwhile in life, and you will grow exponentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And fear is just really just fear is just your comfort zone, right? It's just your
Of course it
it's
is.
yeah. And so and your success is outside of your comfort zone. So it's important that we uh that we take that step further because
That's how you grow. It's that
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Fear, face it, have a go, plan it, learn from it. Fear, face it, blah, blah, and
yeah,
so on. Soon it won't become a fear. You go, actually, you know what? What on earth was I so worried about? Why
yeah,
did I not do this before?
yeah,
And that's experience. Again, perspective. Are you going to die? Is it going to kill you, or is it a mosquito bite? And on that perspective range, your experience changes you over time, Anthony.
absolutely. Is it something that's going to help you grow into the person that you want to become? Because
Absolutely.
and the thing is, if you whoever you want to become, like you said before, start with the end goal in mind and then chunk it down, to the current.
Absolutely.
And in my coaching, I also said the same thing. What is one thing you can do every quarter, every month, every week, every day? Like, what's one thing you can do every day that's going to contribute you towards that goal?
Absolutely.
And
And purpose.
purpose, absolutely.
And purpose.
Yeah,
Purpose is the emotional thing that defines
yeah,
how you feel, what you're
yeah,
passionate about.
yeah. Otherwise, why are you doing it, right? Yeah.
And don't do things, don't go out and do things for what you think other people will think. Do them
No,
for do them
for, for
aligned to
yourself.
your values for what
Yeah,
you think.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on this podcast episode. If people have been inspired by what you've shared today, and I mean, I truly have,
Thank you.
I've been through a lot of adversity, not necessarily in the sporting side of things, but in personal life. Um, and I've got a similar mindset to you. So,
You do.
which is good.
Well,
So
it's
it's
been
good.
great.
Yeah, it's good to know
I've
that
loved it. Thank you.
that I'm on the right track as well. And you know, sometimes we need that iron sharpens iron. People that
Yeah,
kind of help us
we
uh,
all do.
calibrate and stuff. So, if people would like to get in touch with you and get your book, how can they do that?
Okay. Well, they can get in touch with me on Facebook. It's just I'm Jason Dunn. They my Unlimited. The Art of Being Limitless is on tons of platforms. You know, the main ones are kind of Amazon, but there are, you know, you could, depending on what country you're in, you can Google the full title and it'll bring you up all the options. There's an audio book. I don't know how anyone listens to 9 hours of me talking. I couldn't listen to 9 hours of me. I just went back in and did little checks in places to make sure, you know, the quality, and there's kind of, you know, there is a quality check that the platforms go through. But yeah, lots of active people. There's an audio book you know, which is on a whole bunch of platforms, including Audible and Spotify and whatever. And but you know, Facebook's normally the easiest place people want to, you know, get in
Mm,
touch and connect. And
yeah,
well, I love people to follow me, but you know, more than anything else, I just love helping people, mate.
yeah, awesome. We'll put those links into the podcast description so people can
Fantastic.
click on them. And I'll be promoting the book and yourself over many platforms. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much,
Much
Jason,
appreciated.
for joining
Been
us.
wonderful. And thank you, everyone. Anybody that's listened right through to the end, thank you. Hope you have a
Yeah.
brilliant day.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
yeah, if you've been watching or listening to this episode and you've got some insights and inspiration out of this, I encourage you to
Mm.
contact Jason and follow him and even get his book and read it because or listen to 9 hours of Jason.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already followed or subscribed, please do so and share this episode with someone who can benefit from this because it's about spreading the love. It's about
It
spreading
is.
the word and making sure that people are, you know, uh, uh, following their purpose and their journey in life, right? And so, thank you so
It
much.
is.
And lastly, I just want to
My pleasure.
say, you are loved and you are worthy. Champion your life, champion your greatness. Have an amazing day.
Well said.